power, betrayal, and a divine treasure. Sometimes the greatest danger does not come from demons, but from the allies standing beside you. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. Wouldn't it be too early if we leave now? We could simply retreat once those demons reach the city. A heavily bearded man said with a frown, clearly voicing his disagreement. A pale-faced elderly man who had already sustained several injuries immediately retorted, "If we wait until then, it will already be too late." It was evident that he sided with the beautiful woman's judgment. "Humph! Have you become a coward after just a single battle with those demons?" Senior Marshal Brother Wang, the bearded man, sneered mockingly. Facing the man's jeers, the old man remained perfectly calm. His voice carried a quiet gravity as he replied, "You know nothing of it. Junior Marshal Brother Tong, you have not witnessed the might of the myriad demon flag with your own eyes. Even though it is merely a replica spirit treasure, its power is not much inferior to the primordial heaven-wielding seal. Fortunately, old Devil Che personally appeared on the battlefield. Otherwise, even if I had joined forces with the Palace Master, matching the enemy's power would have been exceedingly difficult." The bearded man's expression wavered slightly, though he stubbornly shook his head. "Is it truly that formidable? Even so, it certainly won't be easy for them to break through the final layers of restrictions we've established. Retreating before we even take advantage of that would be a terrible waste." Hearing this, the beautiful woman's brows knit together faintly. Her gaze swept slowly across the faces of those gathered around her before she spoke in a calm, measured tone. "Do not forget that some enemies have already reached the city. If not for Junior Marshal Sister Bai and Junior Marshal Sister Ye, luring the Ice Phoenix into the illusionary light formation to trap it, we likely would not even be here discussing this matter. That Ice Phoenix is a pure-blood descendant of a heavenly spirit beast. Though it is only a 10th grade demon beast, its power is nearly comparable to that of a half-deity transformation cultivator. It is far beyond what late nascent soul human cultivators like ourselves can contend with. Even with 2 elders personally controlling the formation, they will not be able to restrain the beast for long. Under such circumstances, we must begin preparing for a retreat immediately." She paused briefly before continuing. "However, Elder Tong's suggestion is not without merit. Let us proceed this way. The weaker disciples will hide within the Spirit Void Hall first. The stronger disciples and I will remain behind and make use of the final layers of restrictions to deal the enemy a devastating blow. We will kill as many demon beasts as possible, but we must not engage in prolonged battles. The moment the restrictions show signs of breaking, we retreat to the Spirit Void Hall. Remember well, our priority is to preserve our strength, not to exterminate the demon beasts." After hearing her proposal, everyone present felt it was a reasonable course of action. One by one, they nodded in agreement. Soon the group began implementing her plan. They left the palace to rally the disciples, making preparations for both the final confrontation and a swift retreat. The beautiful woman, however, remained behind in the hall. She sat quietly in her chair, deep in thought. A faint trace of concern flickered within her eyes. "You've already made all the necessary arrangements. What then are you worried about? Could it be that you also sense something amiss?" While she sat silently minding her own affairs, a faint voice suddenly echoed within her spiritual sense. It was the voice of an unfamiliar woman. The beautiful woman's expression did not change in the slightest. She replied coldly through her spiritual sense, "Infernal Ghost Mother, unless you wish to experience the agony of having your soul pierced, you had better behave yourself." Clearly, she already knew who this mysterious speaker was. "Haha, if you feel that you cannot handle the myriad demon flag, you could always ask me for help." The woman cackled. "Remove the restrictions on my body, and the 2 of us can join forces. A mere myriad demon flag would be nothing to us. Remove your restrictions." The beautiful woman chuckled coldly. "Keep dreaming. I'm only looking out for you. No need to be so hostile," the woman replied with an eerie laugh. "This time the demon beasts clearly have another objective. Otherwise, why mobilize such an enormous army? Even hiding in the Spirit Void Hall may not guarantee your safety. In my opinion, it will be extremely difficult for the North Night Palace to survive this disaster. No matter what you say, I will never remove your restraints, the beautiful woman replied firmly. Releasing a ghost cultivator as powerful as you into this world would lead to catastrophic consequences. You can remain where you are in the profound ghost badge. The woman fell silent for a moment before shrieking angrily. You say that now, but think about it. Without my help, how could you possibly have reached the late nascent soul stage in just over 500 years? I have saved your life countless times. Without me, you would have died long ago. How could you possibly have become the palace master of the North Night Palace without my assistance? You are correct, the beautiful woman admitted calmly. But do not forget that if I had not excavated the profound ghost badge from that block of myriad-year profound ice, you would still be slumbering deep underground. You helped me reach the nascent soul stage, only so I would possess the power to lift the simultaneous birth curse placed upon you. Is that not the truth? Do not portray yourself as some benevolent benefactor. You helped me only because it served your own interests. But you promised you would release me. The woman roared. I did, the beautiful woman replied coolly. But afterward, I discovered a secret technique that allows me to draw upon your profound yin ghost chi to greatly accelerate my cultivation. If you can assist me in reaching the deity transformation stage, your simultaneous birth curse will naturally dissolve. At that time, you will be free to leave. Help you reach the deity transformation stage. The woman exploded with fury. Do you truly believe I am some omnipotent god? If I could reach that realm myself, would I have been forced to become a ghost cultivator? If you cannot help me achieve deity transformation, the beautiful woman replied expressionlessly, then before I die, I will seal you once again. The woman spat coldly. We shall see whether you even survive this calamity first. You have nearly exhausted your supply of spirit stones, have you not? Without them, there is no way you can force me to help you. I may be out of spirit stones, the beautiful woman replied darkly, but everything you said earlier is nothing more than speculation. What could those demons possibly do to the Spirit Void Hall? The North Night Palace can deal with this crisis on its own. Your help will not be necessary. She formed a hand seal, activating a mysterious celestial technique. In the next instant, the voice of the so-called infernal ghost mother was abruptly cut off. The beautiful woman slowly recomposed herself before rising and leaving the hall. 2 days later, after all the low-level disciples had been evacuated, the demon beast army finally reached the city of ice. The North Night Palace intended to make their final stand using the last layers of restrictions. Old Devil Che's manifestation, the small child, had fully recovered from his injuries over the past few days. Together with the old man, he charged into battle alongside the other metamorphosed demon beasts. After a brutal and intense clash, both sides suffered losses. Yet in the end, the demon beasts gained the upper hand. Harnessing the terrifying power of the myriad demon flag, the small child engulfed 2 elders of the North Night Palace in quick succession. The beautiful woman had no choice but to retreat, while the final restriction barely held the demon horde at bay. Seeing this, old Devil Che unleashed the full might of the myriad demon flag. Countless demon beasts dissolved into demonic chi, forming a massive, turbulent tide that crashed relentlessly against the final restriction. All the cultivators of the North Night Palace retreated into the hidden Arctic dragon border and took refuge inside the Aor Spirit Void Hall. At the beautiful woman's command, the border's restriction was immediately activated. The 3 halls arranged in a triangular formation began to tremble violently. The ground split apart, revealing a colossal formation spell with the halls at its center. Countless spirit stones were embedded within the formation, most of them mid-grade or higher. At the very heart of the formation lay over a dozen extremely rare high-grade spirit stones. Runes swirled and tumbled throughout the formation, radiating an ancient and mysterious light. Moments later, streams of spiritual light intertwined above, forming a vast ocean of silver brilliance that nearly enveloped the entire border. At that moment, faint spiritual light also began radiating from the three halls. Three enormous pillars of light burst from their rooftops, shooting skyward and vanishing into the silver sea above. Thunderous rumbling echoed through the heavens as strange spatial fluctuations rippled through the light. Soon after, the silver radiance churned violently. From within it, a gigantic white arc of light thousands of feet long slowly emerged. The instant the arc appeared, a violent gale swept across the border. Stones and debris were hurled into the air. Buildings collapsed instantly. The world's origin chi descended into chaos. Yet the three halls appeared to be intimately connected to the spatial rift forming above. The light surrounding them grew increasingly brilliant as the white arc gradually widened and stretched like the slow opening of a colossal demonic eye. When the rift had expanded to cover nearly half the sky above the border, bursts of silver light suddenly erupted from within it, enveloping the three spirit void halls. One hall trembled violently before slowly rising from the ground, drifting toward the rift. A flash of silver light, and it vanished without a trace. The second hall quickly followed. But just as the third hall began to ascend, a streak of white light flashed somewhere within the hidden Arctic dragon border. A snowy white ice phoenix, roughly 10 feet long, suddenly appeared. A flicker of surprise glimmered within the spirit beast's emerald eyes as it observed the scene unfolding within the border. Its gaze then shifted toward the final hall, rising into the air. Opening its beak, it released a streak of white light that vanished instantly. The phoenix then watched coldly as the final hall was swallowed by the spatial rift, making no attempt to stop it. After all three halls disappeared into the rift, the spatial tear slowly began to close. A flash of silver light burst forth, and the rift vanished entirely. All the extraordinary phenomena within the border faded away. Only then did the ice phoenix release a clear, resonant cry before spreading its wings and vanishing in a flash of white light. Sometime later, an earth-shaking explosion resounded through the mountains. The final restriction had been broken. The demon beasts surged into the city of ice. The old man and the small child immediately rushed toward the mountain. Yet at that very moment, deep within the profound ice cave, Master Arctic Dragon had reached the most critical stage of breaking through his bottleneck. Inside the formation spell, Han Li's purple apex flames had already been extinguished. He stared in astonishment toward the center of the formation. Not only him, Bai Mengxin, the old woman, and the others wore the same stunned expressions. At the center of the formation, the ball of light atop the massive rock had vanished. In its place bloomed a radiant white lotus. Master Arctic Dragon sat within the lotus while wisps of glacial chi drifted from its petals, shrouding his figure in a hazy veil. On his glabella, a faint six-colored lotus insignia flickered intermittently, unstable and indistinct. Even stranger, a subtle fragrance emanated from his body. It resembled the scent of sandalwood or perhaps medicinal herbs, rich and lingering. Yet beneath that fragrance lurked a faint, unsettling trace of fishy odor. It was utterly incredible. Even though witnessing someone break through to the deity transformation stage with one's own eyes was an exceedingly rare occurrence, countless rumors about such events had circulated throughout the cultivation world. The transformation of the physical body into sandalwood. Who would have thought that such a legend was actually real? The old woman murmured to herself, envy flickering across her face. Once this process concludes, he should have successfully broken through his bottleneck, correct? Not necessarily, the old monk replied with a slight frown as he observed the scene carefully. Brother Arctic Dragon's condition appears somewhat unstable. It seems he has only fulfilled the prerequisites for attempting a breakthrough to the deity transformation stage. Yet the metamorphosis of the nascent soul within his body is not progressing smoothly. Otherwise, the insignia manifested by our glacial flames would not be flickering so erratically. That is only to be expected, Han Li said calmly. Although we lent him the power of our glacial flames to temporarily strengthen his nascent soul, that power does not belong to him. Naturally controlling it will be quite difficult. A trace of concern surfaced on the face of the green-robed middle-aged man. Should we assist the Grand Elder in stabilizing his nascent soul? That absolutely cannot be done. Bai Mengxin immediately rejected the idea. Breaking through a deity transformation bottleneck is no simple matter. Perhaps this instability is precisely what Senior Martial Brother Arctic Dragon is relying on to force a breakthrough in a single decisive attempt. If we intervene recklessly, we may harm him instead. It would be wiser to simply observe for now. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's lips upon hearing this, and he voiced no objections. The others exchanged glances before falling silent as well. In truth, even if they wished to help, they most likely lacked the strength to do so. After manipulating their glacial flames continuously for 2 days and 2 nights, everyone present was already utterly exhausted. Their magic power and spiritual sense had both been pushed far beyond their limits. Thus, they could only watch as Master Arctic Dragon struggled to overcome the most perilous hurdle on his own. What no one noticed was the faint blue light flickering incessantly within Han Li's eyes. He was carefully observing the flow of magic power throughout Master Arctic Dragon's body, as well as every subtle transformation occurring within his nascent soul, committing each detail firmly to memory. Such observations would undoubtedly prove invaluable in the future. Just this opportunity alone made Han Li feel that remaining here despite the risks had been entirely worthwhile. After all, witnessing a cultivator attempt to break through to the deity transformation stage was an extraordinarily rare opportunity, one that could not be squandered. Although the others could use their spiritual sense to observe certain aspects of the process, they were nowhere near capable of seeing as much as Han Li could with his bright sight spirit eyes. As such, he was benefiting far more than anyone else present. Time slowly slipped by. What felt like an eternity passed. Suddenly, Master Arctic Dragon's body trembled as he sat within the White Lotus. The strange fragrance drifting from his body instantly intensified several-fold, and the lotus insignia on his glabella abruptly expanded, forming numerous lotus projections that began to bloom outward. Everyone immediately noticed the changes and focused their full attention on him. Master Arctic Dragon had already opened his eyes. Crimson and golden light radiated from his pupils. Though he remained seated and motionless, his body slowly rose into the air as if he had become entirely weightless. He looked around at the people gathered nearby, and a hint of joy surfaced on his face. After a brief moment of hesitation, he raised a hand. His fingers trembled slightly as if forming a complex hand seal. At almost the exact same moment, Han Li felt the remaining spiritual power within his body suddenly pulse violently before surging outward as though it were trying to escape his body. Han Li was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly activated his cultivation arts several times in succession. Only then was he able to temporarily suppress the unrest within his spiritual power. Around him, the others reacted in much the same way. Their expressions changed drastically as they hurriedly took frantic measures to stabilize their own spiritual power. Clearly, Han Li was not the only one affected by this strange phenomenon. A sharp glint flashed through Han Li's eyes. Before he could determine the cause of what had just occurred, a ringing sound suddenly echoed from several nearby formation spells. The light barrier trembled violently as wisps of spiritual light began to drift out from it, flowing directly toward the center of the formation. The moment those wisps touched Master Arctic Dragon's body, they vanished instantly. Shortly afterward, the light barrier began to crumble. The spiritual light streaming in from outside the formation turned a creamy hue and gradually grew thicker and more viscous. The world's origin chi has been triggered, someone murmured in a low voice filled with awe, excitement, admiration, and a trace of envy. Han Li's heart skipped a beat upon hearing those words. Master Arctic Dragon had become like a bottomless abyss. No matter how much glacial energy poured into his body, nothing seemed to change aside from the golden light radiating from his eyes and glabella growing increasingly brilliant. This phenomenon lasted for roughly 10 minutes. Then suddenly, a series of explosive sounds erupted from within Master Arctic Dragon's body. His seated figure instantly grew several inches taller. At the same time, the lotus insignia on his glabella expanded dramatically, almost obscuring his entire head. But in the next instant, the lotus abruptly contracted, shrinking down to the size of a thumb before imprinting itself firmly upon his glabella. The streams of spiritual light converging toward him faltered, then dissipated entirely. The turbulence within the spiritual power of Han Li and the others also settled down. Master Arctic Dragon formed another hand seal with a solemn expression before slowly closing his eyes. The spiritual radiance emitted by the six-colored lotus on his glabella gradually faded. Has he already reached the deity transformation stage? The same thought surfaced simultaneously in everyone's mind. The green-robed middle-aged man and Bai Mengxin were overjoyed. Yet before anyone could speak, a muffled groan suddenly escaped Master Arctic Dragon's lips. His face abruptly twisted and contorted in agony without the slightest warning. Clutching his head, he appeared to be enduring unimaginable pain. Hanley and the others were completely stunned. "What's happening?" "Senior Marshal Brother," the green-robed man shouted anxiously, though he did not dare approach. Master Arctic Dragon raised his head with great difficulty and looked toward him. But before he could say anything, the lotus flower on his glabella suddenly began to flash violently. Then it detached itself. The lotus swelled and shrank erratically before exploding with a dull pop, splitting into 6 separate balls of spiritual light. Master Arctic Dragon let out a miserable cry. His body swayed before plunging downward from the air. He crashed directly into the white lotus below, curling into a trembling ball as his body convulsed uncontrollably. Grand Elder, Bai Mengxin could no longer remain idle. She and the green-robed man immediately shot forward as streaks of light toward the lotus. Hanley and the other two exchanged glances, but remained where they were. "I'm fine," Master Arctic Dragon suddenly said, much to everyone's surprise. He flipped over and sat up once more. Although his face was still pale, the agony had vanished from his features. It was merely backlash from the world's origin chi. Bai Mengxin and the green-robed man sighed in relief and halted in mid-air above the lotus. But before they could question him further, Master Arctic Dragon hurriedly spoke again. With a flip of his hand, a stack of silver daggers, the same ones used earlier, appeared in his palm. He waved his hand. 16 streaks of silver light shot into the air as all 16 daggers were flung upward. In the next instant, they turned and circled back. Their sharp tips pointed directly toward Master Arctic Dragon. With a low shout, all 16 daggers stabbed into his body simultaneously. Except for his head dagger hilts now protruded from every part of his body. The blades had nearly completely sunk into his flesh. Han Li's eyes narrowed immediately as he stared intently at Master Arctic Dragon. At that moment, a layer of mixed flames erupted over Master Arctic Dragon's body. Most of the flames were blue and white, but streaks of yellow and green flickered within them as well. "Fellow Taoists, please retrieve your glacial flames," Master Arctic Dragon urged solemnly, his eyes still closed. The monk recited a Buddhist prayer before waving his sleeve. The green glacial flames hovering over Master Arctic Dragon's body immediately transformed into threads of spiritual light, gathering into a small sphere before flying back toward the monk. With another sweep of his sleeve, the monk collected his flame. Han Li and the others did the same, recalling their own glacial flames. Moments later, only a layer of celestial ice flames remained upon Master Arctic Dragon's body. The strange fragrance that had filled the air earlier had vanished. Yet Master Arctic Dragon's expression remained tense as he formed another peculiar hand seal. He began chanting in a strange rhythmic tone. The silver daggers embedded throughout his body trembled faintly. A soft ringing sound echoed. White glacial chi began to spread across the dagger hilts, instantly making the blades appear more translucent. Master Arctic Dragon ceased chanting and changed to an entirely different hand seal. A series of dull thuds rang out. Piercing bursts of silver light erupted from the daggers, shattering the layer of ice that had formed across his body. The shattered ice vanished into nothingness. Yet more glacial chi soon gathered along the silver blades. forming another layer of ice only for it to be shattered again moments later. After watching this cycle repeat several times, Han Li's lips twitched slightly as a sudden realization dawned upon him. Master Arctic Dragon was using the power of those treasures to forcibly expel the profound jade's glacial chi he had absorbed earlier. It appeared that he had failed to break through the deity transformation bottleneck after all. Otherwise, that glacial chi would have served as the perfect medicine to replenish his depleted energy. Several thoughts flashed rapidly through Han Li's mind before he silently came to a decision. At that moment, Master Arctic Dragon let out a long sigh and slowly opened his eyes. His pupils had returned to their normal black and white color. However, he still retained the youthful appearance of a man in his 30s. He looked up toward the sky. A deep look of dejection slowly appeared on his face. The green-robed man hesitated briefly before asking, "Are you all right, senior martial brother?" "I'm fine. It's just a pity that all my efforts have come to nothing." A wry smile appeared on Master Arctic Dragon's face as he rose slowly to his feet. The lotus of light beneath him immediately began to crumble, disintegrating into countless specks of spiritual light that soon faded into nothingness. He then drifted gently downward, landing atop the massive rock below. "That truly is unfortunate. Your spiritual sense was only just slightly insufficient, fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon. Otherwise, the breakthrough would surely have succeeded. In any case, the secret technique you devised is indeed a feasible path toward the deity transformation stage." The old woman sighed mournfully before offering a few words of consolation. "Indeed, Madame Long," the monk added with a faint smile. "It would be exceedingly difficult for anyone to possess a glacial flame of their own and then locate a place like the profound jade cave. Even so, I imagine that many cultivators will attempt to replicate your method, fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon." Master Arctic Dragon grimaced slightly upon hearing the monk's words, but he merely shook his head with a resigned expression. He then lowered his gaze to his own hands. A trace of emotion flickered across his eyes as he looked at the firm, supple skin of his youthful body. "Fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon," Han Li said with furrowed brows, "seeing that nothing more can be accomplished here, shouldn't you withdraw this formation spell so that we may return to the stone hall and recover our energy?" As he spoke, his gaze swept toward the light barrier that had once again formed around them. "No hurry," Master Arctic Dragon replied indifferently, without even looking up. "There are still a few matters I must deal with first. Once I have finished, I will withdraw the formation." The green-robed man and Bai Mengxin exchanged a glance before hovering silently above Master Arctic Dragon, their expressions unreadable. "What do you mean by that?" the monk asked darkly. He had already sensed that something was amiss. The old woman said nothing, but a wary expression had appeared on her face. Her sleeve rustled softly, as though she were gripping something within it, and she turned a cold gaze upon the trio from the North Night Palace. "There is no need to be alarmed, fellow Taoists," Master Arctic Dragon said calmly. "I bear no ill will toward any of you. I merely wish for Brother Han to return something that rightfully belongs to me." Only then did he raise his head to look directly at Han Li. The silver daggers surrounding him suddenly began to emit a faint ringing sound. At the same time, golden light shimmered within his eyes as if his magic power had already been fully restored. "Return something that belongs to you." Both the monk and the old woman turned toward Han Li with visible surprise. "You must be joking, fellow Taoist," Han Li replied with a faint smile. "This is my first visit to the North Night Palace. I have never taken anything from here." A peculiar expression appeared on Master Arctic Dragon's face upon hearing those words. He fell silent for a moment. Then suddenly he flipped his hand over. A ball of blue light appeared above his palm. Within that light floated a miniature cauldron. "That's the celestial blue cauldron," the monk exclaimed in shock. He immediately rummaged through his sleeve before producing an identical miniature cauldron of his own. His eyes darted back and forth between the two cauldrons, utterly bewildered. Master Arctic Dragon narrowed his eyes as he looked toward Han Li. "There is no need to be alarmed, fellow Taoist Mo. Joe," he said calmly. "Your cauldron is not a counterfeit, it is also a genuine celestial blue cauldron. The truth is that there are two celestial blue cauldrons. Furthermore, both of these ancient treasures are merely replicas of another artifact. He paused briefly before continuing. What I seek from fellow Taoist Han is none other than the divine spirit treasure, the Heavenvoid Cauldron. You possess it, do you not? A divine spirit treasure. The old woman cried out in astonishment. She turned toward Han Li, disbelief and a trace of greed flashing through her eyes. The monk was equally stunned and also fixed his gaze on Han Li. Before coming here, the two of them had inquired about Han Li from Master Arctic Dragon. They had been told that he was merely a cultivator from the heavenly south region. The notion that someone from such a remote place could possess a divine spirit treasure was nothing short of astonishing. Han Li did not immediately deny it. Instead, a faint smile appeared on his face as he asked leisurely, "Ah, so you mean the Heavenvoid Cauldron? I don't mind you asking about it, but first I have a question of my own. How are you so certain that I possess this cauldron? And what exactly does your spirit void hall have to do with it?" "It seems you truly do have it," Master Arctic Dragon said. "As for how I knew, you should recall that your purple apex flames are infused with celestial ice flames. Those flames originate from the Heavenvoid Cauldron. Aside from the celestial blue cauldron replicas, the Heavenvoid Cauldron is the only treasure in the human world that contains such a glacial flame." He smiled faintly. "Coincidentally, I recently refined my own celestial ice flames to their maximum potential. Because of that, I am extremely sensitive to lower-grade celestial ice flames." Although Master Arctic Dragon had already been nearly certain of Han Li's possession of the cauldron, hearing it implicitly confirmed still filled him with undisguised excitement. "So you already knew from the moment we first met?" Han Li asked, his brows knitting together. "Indeed," Master Arctic Dragon replied calmly. "I didn't expect you to admit it so readily. I had assumed you would deny it, and I had prepared several lines of questioning to press the matter further." "It seems that was unnecessary," he continued in a solemn voice. "The Heavenvoid Cauldron once belonged to Fairy Ice Soul, the founding matriarch of our North Night Palace. Over a century ago, she left to travel the world carrying that treasure with her. Yet when she returned, the cauldron had vanished. That is why the Spirit Void Hall was constructed. I have no interest in how you came to possess such a treasure. But the fact remains, it belongs to the North Night Palace. If you return it, I will gladly allow you to leave." A look of sudden understanding appeared on Han Li's face. He chuckled quietly to himself while gazing at Master Arctic Dragon, yet said nothing. It was obvious that he had not taken the implicit threat seriously at all. Master Arctic Dragon's expression darkened immediately. "I have heard from Meng Yao that you are a man of exceptional power," he said coldly. "Though your cultivation is only at the mid-nascent soul stage, your combat strength rivals that of a late-nascent soul cultivator. Even a demon beast, such as the silver-winged demon, cannot harm you. If we were elsewhere, perhaps I could do nothing to you. But here," his voice grew colder, "we stand within my formation spell in the profound Jade Cave. You have at most 30% of your magic power remaining. Meanwhile, the effects of my secret technique still persist. My body and magic power are currently at their peak." The golden light in his eyes burned brighter. "Must I explain your chances of victory under such circumstances?" The green-robed man and Bai Mengxin stared intently at Han Li, clearly anticipating an imminent battle. Who would have thought, Han Li said with a cold smile, that after I assisted you in breaking through your bottleneck, you would repay me by turning against me? Is this how the North Night Palace rewards kindness? Humph! Have I not compensated you sufficiently?" Master Arctic Dragon replied coldly. "Not only did I give you the mantra for refining glacial flames, I also shared the secret technique I devised after countless centuries of contemplation. And besides, was your true purpose not to witness this technique in action?" Han Li glanced toward the monk and the old woman beside him before speaking calmly. "Perhaps you have a point." He paused. "But I'm not the only one trapped inside this formation. A divine spirit treasure is no trivial matter. Do you intend to silence these two as well?" Both the monk and the old woman stirred slightly at those words. The monk, in particular, glanced down at the miniature cauldron in his hand with a grim expression. Ha ha ha. Your attempt at sowing discord is wasted, Master Arctic Dragon said with a cold laugh. I have known those two for many years. No matter what you say, they will not turn against me. This is a matter between fellow Taoist Han and fellow Taoist Arctic Dragon, the old woman said coldly. I have no intention of becoming involved. With a flash of light, her body moved to the edge of the barrier. Hanli's eyelids twitched slightly. We are all here to assist Brother Arctic Dragon, the monk said hurriedly. Let us not turn against one another now. How about this, if the Heavenvoid Cauldron truly belongs to the North Night Palace? Perhaps the palace could compensate fellow Taoist Han in exchange for it. Surely we can resolve this peacefully. Master Arctic Dragon's expression eased slightly. The palace is indeed facing troubled times, he admitted. I would prefer not to make Brother Han my enemy. If you return the cauldron, I will reward you with a vast amount of magic stones enough to ensure that you will never lack cultivation resources for the rest of your life. Yet upon hearing this, Han Li suddenly burst into laughter. He tilted his head back and gazed into the sky without replying. Master Arctic Dragon's face darkened instantly. His shoulders trembled with suppressed fury. The blue flames across his body erupted violently, transforming him into a blazing sphere of azure fire. At the same time, the green-robed man and Bai Mengxin began forming hand seals. More than a dozen translucent flying swords shot from one of their bodies, while the other produced two short black halberds. The weapons circled them in the air, emitting sharp, eerie screeches. Seeing this, the monk sighed helplessly and recited a Buddhist prayer. He drifted toward the edge of the light barrier to join the old woman. Clearly, he had no intention of interfering. Yet halfway there, the monk suddenly changed direction and flew toward Han Li. Han Li's expression shifted slightly. Before he could determine the monk's intentions, the monk quietly transmitted his voice. Brother Han, take this celestial blue cauldron. I will assist you in the battle that is about to begin.